1. Ancient animal traps. Low stone walls crisscrossing the deserts of Israel, Egypt and Jordan have puzzled archaeologists since their discovery by pilots in the early 20th century. The chain of lines sum up to 64 kilometers long and nicknamed kites by scientists for their appearance from the air date to 300 BC, but were abandoned long ago. The mystery might be somewhat clearer thanks to a recent study, claiming that the purpose of the kites was to funnel wild animals toward a small pit, where they could easily be killed in large numbers. This efficient system suggests that local hunters knew more about the behavior of local fauna than previously thought. The research shows that the construction of the kite was actually more sophisticated than it seemed before. Their use was more diverse than we thought, and the ancients' knowledge of animal ethology was deeper and more intimate than one would think, said Uzi Avner of Ben-Gurion University Eilat, in Israel. 2. Nazca Lines. The Nazca Lines are a series of large ancient geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert, in southern Peru. The largest figures are up to 370 meters, 1,200 feet, long. They were designated as the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994. The high, arid plateau stretches more than 80 kilometers, 50 miles, between the towns of Nazca and Palpa on the Pampas de Jumana, about 400 kilometers, 250 miles, south of Lima. Mystery of Nazca Lines. The geoglyphs, known as Nazca Lines, were spotted from the air in 1939. Some 700 geoglyphs are thought to have been drawn by the ancient Nazca people between the 1st and 6th centuries. The new lines were revealed following gales and sandstorms in Peru. Experts believe one of the geoglyphs shows a 196 feet long, 60-meter snake. Another appears to show a camelid, zigzag lines and an unidentified bird. Archaeologists agree the enormous shapes. There are hundreds of them, ranging from geometric lines to complicated depictions of animals, plants and imaginary figures were made over 2,000 years ago by people of the pre-Inca Nazca culture, who simply removed the red surface pebbles to reveal the lighter earth below in designs of their choice. 3. Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu or the Pyramid of Cheops, is the oldest and largest of the 3 pyramids in the Giza Pyramid complex bordering what is now El Giza, Egypt. It is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one to remain largely intact, based on a mark in an interior chamber naming the work Gang, and a reference to 4th dynasty Egyptian pharaoh Khufu. Egyptologists believe that the pyramid was built as a tomb, over a 10 to 20 year period concluding around 2560 BC, initially at 146.5 meters, 481 feet. The Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure in the world for more than 3,800 years. Originally, the Great Pyramid was covered by casing stones that formed a smooth outer surface. The Great Pyramid consists of an estimated 2.3 million blocks, which most believe to have been transported from nearby quarries. The Tura limestone used for the casing was quarried across the river, the largest granite stones in the pyramid, found in the king's chamber, weigh 25 to 80 tons and were transported from Aswan, more than 800 kilometers, 500 miles, away. 4. Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin or Turin Shroud is a length of linen cloth bearing the image of a man who is alleged to be Jesus of Nazareth. The cloth itself is believed by some to be the burial shroud he was wrapped in when he was buried after crucifixion. Although 3 radiocarbon dating tests in 1988 dated a sample of the cloth to the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church officially recorded the existence of the shroud in AD 1353, which is when the cloth showed up in a church in Liège, France. But the legend of the shroud dates back to AD 30 or 33. According to that legend, the shroud was transported from Judea, now southern Palestine, to Edessa, Turkey, and later to Constantinople, now called Istanbul. When Crusaders sacked Constantinople in AD 1204, the cloth was moved to Athens, Greece, where it was allegedly held until AD 1225. It wasn't until the 1980s that researchers got their hands on the cloth to try to determine its true age using radiocarbon dating. They determined that the alleged burial cloth of Jesus was actually created between AD 1260 and AD 1390. In other words, the scientists determined that the cloth is most likely a medieval forgery. However, critics of this research argue that the scientists may have dated newer portions of the shroud that were stitched together centuries after Jesus' death, which would explain why the shroud seems newer than it really is. 5. Göbekli Tepe. It is an archaeological site in the southeastern Anatolia region of Turkey, approximately 12 kilometers, 7 miles, northeast of the city of Şanlıurfa. The tell has a height of 15 meters, 49 feet, and is about 300 meters, 980 feet, in diameter. It is approximately 760 meters, 2,490 feet, above sea level. An amazing archaeological discovery made in 1994 at Göbekli Tepe, a rural area of Turkey, has blown that hypothesis apart, prompting new questions about the evolution of civilization, containing multiple rings of huge stone pillars carved, with scenes of animals and dating to the 10th millennium BC. Göbekli Tepe is considered the world's oldest place of worship, yet evidence also suggests the people who built it were semi-nomadic hunters, likely unaware of agriculture, which followed in the area only 5 centuries later. Because of Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists now have to ask which came first. Did building projects like this lead to settlement, and not vice versa, as always thought?